Gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, mad doggies in the building, Quebec City, Montreal. Yeah. Well, Montreal, Quebec. I don't know which one, to be honest with you, right? But what a location. What a location. I think it was 10 years ago, Tony Bellew fought Adonis Stevenson. Also in January, Chapin. Billy Joe Saunders went and fought David Lemieux. Also, I think in January. No, it was December, Chapin. I don't know what they're thinking about going to Canada when it's like minus 20 doing these boxing shows. Like, why not any other time of year? Do you know what I'm saying? But hey, one day it'd be good to check out Montreal, man. So big fight weekend. Just a quick one as well. Before I dropped my last video, it was Francis Ngannou versus Andy Joshua. Announcement coming soon. Little did I know that by the time I dropped the video, the announcement was out there. That was a little bit convenient or inconvenient, depending which way you look at it. But massive fight. I kind of like covered everything. I probably would have said anyway in the video, but exciting and not that long to wait as well. I think it's at March 8th, March 9th, one of the two. Not that far away. What is it, like 6, 7 weeks now? Which is crazy. And I think like Francis Ngannou is only just like starting camp. And where to be honest with you, I think Joshua's probably like started a couple of weeks early. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know whether that's kind of a bad sign. Maybe Francis is getting a little bit comfortable with the money and thinking, I will start my camp whenever I want. I can knock Joshua out if I catch him with this left hook that I caught Fury. Joshua will not get up. Yeah. Or, hopefully he is taking it seriously. You know what I mean? Hopefully it's going to be a war. I think it's going to be an exciting fight while it lasts, but ultimately, AJ's a heavy favorite. You know what I mean? But listen, this ain't about all that. But just quick roundup. Ohara Davis gets knocked out by Ismael Barroso on a big golden boy card. There was a lot of stars out that night. A lot of people, in the boxing industry came out to watch that. Ohara, you know what I mean? Like, gutted for him, to be honest with you. Gutted for him. Because that was a real opportunity against a faded Barroso. We saw him still look handy against Rolly Romero, but still, why would you square up like that in the first round against a big puncher, a big Venezuelan puncher, bro? You know what I'm saying? First round, squares up his shoulders, squares up his feet, gets clocked, right? Gets up, does it again. I don't think he landed a punch in the fight. I feel for him, man, because I like O'Hara. I think he's been a bit unlucky in his career, and I think there's something there, there's some talent there. He's got real quality jab. He can think in the ring. He's a decent-ish mover. He's got decent-ish power. He can finish when he needs to, but wrong tactics. I mean, we saw $1 million crawler, Andy Crawler, Manchester's finest, take a shellac in an early rounds, but got him down the stretch, and that should have been the tactics. But listen, hopefully Ohara can come back. But into this main event, Beterbiev Smith, bit of controversy this week. A lot of talk about these atypical findings as opposed to adverse findings. And I think Eddie Hearn, there's an element of everything's going on, right? Firstly, as I've said before, I have my suspicions about everyone in the sport. Almost everyone in the sport I have my suspicions about. And I think there isn't a clear concept of cheating and not cheating anymore. I think everything has become very grey. And I think a lot of people are cheating in some capacity or not, right? If it was all out in the public domain, what everybody's doing, I think Joe Public would consider maybe 80% plus of what people are doing to be cheating. But that being said, on this channel, we like to call out the double standards. We like to call out the BS. We like to call out the narratives. And like Eddie Hearn's been making a point of talking about this week, right? That, they got notification of this atypical finding, which was a temporary spike in testosterone and HGH, or human growth hormone. And it wasn't enough to cross the threshold into a positive test, but it was non-typical, atypical, right? And so they repeated it subsequently, and it come back normal, and so it doesn't cross, the threshold. Now, when people talk about this, it can sound kind of confusing, but ultimately we're talking about numbers, right? This is not this intangible, airy-fairy thing like what's atypical, what's adverse, what analytical finding, what's a positive test. Like we're talking about numbers, right? So your number is X and the threshold is Y, and you're either above or below the threshold, right? And you're either above it, marginally, or you're above it in a big way. And you're either above it consistently or you're above it just like one off, right? This is a numbers-based game. And the way Eddie Hearn is making it sound like, it's this complicated thing, and it's this atypical finding. Like, if you haven't crossed the threshold, there would be a threshold, right, for what is a positive test. And just because you're close to that threshold, right, and above the average, doesn't make it positive. So if it's not positive, why are you talking about it? Why are you talking about it? And he intentionally makes it seem like this new concept, right? And it's come out from Victor Conte, and he's even given the dates as well. I haven't gone back to check which Matchroom shows were on those dates, but there's been numerous occasions of like quote unquote atypical. Atypical just means above average, right? But above average doesn't mean positive. Okay. And so there's been numerous occasions of matchroom fighters having quote unquote atypical drug results, which basically just means more than the average. But Eddie Hearn didn't talk about it every time that happened, right? So why is he talking about it now? I think it's just mind games, to be honest with you. I think they see an opportunity. They see the opportunity for real big money in Saudi Arabia to do like Bivol versus Smith, which would be in-house, both matchroom fighters. And Eddie's really trying to get close to his excellency, right? And right now he's having to work through Frank, it's like a Queensbury show. I mean, and it must be, listen, as much as he's happy to be getting paid what he's getting paid, like from an ego point of view, it must be burning him that like Queensbury announcing Joshua and Ngannou and stuff, right? And so listen, if Smith wins and they can make Smith Bivol, then it's like Matchroom, and it's like, look, come on, like let's we don't need Queensbury involved now. So I think that's what Eddie Hearn's game is. But listen, looking at the fight, I feel like Beterbiev, you have to consider him the favorite, 19-0, 19 knockouts. How can you not? Now, Smith hasn't done a lot wrong himself in his career. Like he's been a unified champion. He's had big nights as well. And the only loss he's ever had is to Canelo, and there's no shame in losing to Canelo. Now, Canelo was very smart in the way that he intentionally injured Callum Smith's left arm. He kept punching him in the bicep to a point where he couldn't throw the left hook anymore. And that's something that Canelo's intelligence and skill level allows him to do. I don't know whether anyone else would ever bother to do that. I don't think Bivol will bother to do that. So stylistically, I think the main thing to consider is that Beterbiev has been shipped a few shots, shipped a few, seesaw, and the seesaw. Beterbiev shipped a few shots against Anthony Yard, right? Now, the way that fight broke down stylistically is that Yard wanted to punch and then Beterbiev wanted to punch. I think critically, you're going to see a lot more same time punching here because Callum Smith likes to punch with you, right? He's not one of, like, okay, everyone does it to an extent where you let a shot off, you cover up, do you know what I mean? You try and defend, etc. But Callum Smith is really going to be looking for that catch counter with the left hook, and it's essentially going to be a function of whether or not he can find it. Beterbiev's going to be trying to target the body. He won't be used to having to punch up. He won't be used to having to fight somebody who's significantly bigger than him. But just listen, Callum Smith's just a freak of nature coming up from a low weight class and just towering over the man in the division. And probably the biggest in the division apart from Callum Smith. So there is going to be areas of discomfort for Beterbiev, but you just have to assume that with his power, with his ferocity, at some point it's going to get too much, and Callum Smith can go into his shell a little bit when it's not going his way. So listen, could Beterbiev hurt him? Smith goes into his shell, it goes 12 rounds. I think it could, right? Could Beterbiev end up beating him up to the body and potentially stopping Callum Smith? I don't know. Possible, but I think it's unlikely. Smith's never really looked close to being stopped. So yeah, I think if I was a betting man, which I'm not anymore, I'll probably go edge towards Beterbiev on points, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if Smith can execute the catch counter and Beterbiev ends up on the ropes covering up, and eventually maybe Callum Smith can get the stoppage right on away turf. We'll see what happens. Should be an exciting fight. Should be an exciting night. I don't think there's much going on the undercard, but I do know we're going to review it tomorrow. Peace.